Here at the PicoShots laboratories, we occasionally conduct rigorous, scientific, informal, ad hoc, casual, comparative tasting sessions. Recently we did this for the banana liqueur niche because nobody else had. Today we look into 4 dark rums. White rum is the best-selling spirit, outselling vodka, whiskey, and brandy. Of course, your typical preppy poser, having mixed Bacardis, may not really be aware that Bacardi is, in fact, rum. And Malibu coconut rum, one of the best-selling spirits, barely mentions rum on the label. White rum is a perfect mixing base due to the neutral taste. But that's not what we're talking about today. These are dark rums, hair-on-the-chest rums, closer to bourbon than to Bacardi. Not all rums that are dark in color count as dark rum. Captain Morgan, for example, is a spiced rum, which basically means a flavoring syrup is added to the finished rum. It has its place, but that place is not on PicoShots. So, a bit of background. Rum is made by distilling and fermenting sugarcane molasses and juice and aging it at least a year. The results are a clear liquid. The subsequent aging in casks, often of oak, is dark. It wasn't until 150 years ago or so that double distillation, better yeast selection, and filtering resulted in the more pure, less flavorful white rums. Much of this experimentation was done by Don Facundo Bacardi Masso, who then founded the Bacardi we know today. Dark rums are aged in charred oak and aren't all that similar to the original rums. Most rum comes from the Caribbean. Because the tropics are so much warmer than, say, Scotland, a 3-year-old rum is far more mature than a 3-year-old Scotch. So onward to our entrance. Goslings Black Seal Bermuda Black Rum is the primary drinking rum of one of our main principles. This is 40% alcohol, and as would be expected from the name, is a product of Bermuda, bottled and imported by Goslings. That, being from Bermuda, can't be taken for granted, as you will see with Screech. The Dark and Stormy is a trademark drink consisting of Goslings rum and ginger beer. This rum evoked perhaps the widest variety of reactions, everything from medicinal to tastes like what I drank when I snuck out at 17. The consensus was a smoky bite at the back of the tongue, not a big or harsh bite. Interesting tones, very complex, with hints of medicine or black licorice and candy-like. It was most compared to Monk, and favorably, as in more complex and doesn't taste as bad as Monk. And speaking of Old Monk is a 7-year-old blended rum, 40% alcohol. It is distilled and bottled and blended by Mohan Nahar Dist in Ghaziabad, India. So it isn't a European Monk, it is an Indian Monk. Is India renowned for their rums? Well, Monk didn't do too well in this comparison. The noted tones were of a caramel nose, burnt taste, and molasses smell. More than the others, this rum needs its air. It starts off very rough, with a lot of burning, but smooths down in a bit. It was judged the least complex of our entries and was spontaneously awarded the Best Carburetor Cleaning Award from these 4. Next up is Zacapa Centenario 23 Años, a blend of aged rum made in Guatemala. It is also the most expensive rum in our contest. The company, Licoreria Zacapanaca, was established in 1930 and later became part of La Nacional distribution firm. This rum, the Ron Zacapa Centenario, is not only their flagship, but is considered one of the must-have super premium rums. One very unusual aspect of it is that it is initially distilled at sea level and then is aged at about 1.5 miles above sea level. The 23-year designator is the average age of the rums blended in. Note that Ron, in the world of rums, just means rum. It isn't a name, it's basically the Spanish word for rum. You would probably expect a 23-year-old rum to take the ribbon in this taste-off. You'd be right. The tasters loved the smell, calling it floral and like wine. And from our single malt Scotch aficionado, and whoo, that's nice. It was judged slightly sweet, very smooth, with more tingle than Screech, which in fairness is from the other end of the spectrum entirely. Especially noted were a delayed warming effect, the slight sweetness, and again several evocations of, that's nice. From the other extreme of the dark rum spectrum, we have Canada's Screech. Their label claims, Screech is the shriek of the wind in the rigging as it cries home for Newfoundland. It's the cry of the Arctic tern circling the sails. But Screech is imported from Jamaica, bottled by the Newfoundland and Labrador Liquor Corporation. If that Arctic tern was in Jamaica, it is way off course. Technically, Screech isn't quite a rum, but the differences are pretty minor. There's a lot of Canadian pride behind this liquor, and it even has a verb attached. A newbie to Newfoundland is screeched when convinced to drink a shot of Screech, kiss a codfish on the mouth, and recite a Newfoundland saying, culminating in the presentation of a certificate. Despite all this, and despite being in the biggest bottle, Screech was a crowd pleaser. It didn't quite match up to the Zacapa, but it doesn't try to. Our tasting panel was largely in agreement on Screech, but we felt it didn't agree with itself. The smell, the nose, is a very strong and rough alcohol. One taster noted, "My eyes burned when I tried to smell it." This could replace Vicks Vapor Rub, but that doesn't extend to the taste. Screech was unexpectedly smooth, especially after smelling it. It doesn't burn the mouth, and it's not complex, just a nice, smooth, simple rum, which led to the consensus that this is the perfect dark rum for mixing, but perhaps is less exciting for drinking straight. So those are our contestants in the dark rum tasting contest, and the results were consistent across panelists, much more so than in other tastings we've done. Zacapa was easily the favorite, with great smells and tastes, good complexity, nice warming without burning, and a hint of sweetness. Screech was a surprise runner-up, with a ferocious scent, but nice and completely inoffensive taste. Goslings placed a disappointing third, as our panel didn't like the medicinal licorice taste, and Old Monk came away with the consolation prize of being the best dark rum for cleansing car parts with. None of these are bad rums. Even Old Monk is a good sipping rum. Good rum is like good wine. Each one has a different character, and at any given time you may be in the mood for a different one. Had this tasting occurred on a rainy winter day instead of outside on a warm late summer evening, the results could very well have favored the more aggressive tasting rums. Tune in again soon to catch more tastings and some introductions to alcohols you may not regularly run into.